I'm sure it's wonderful, darling. It only sounds shitty.
Yeah, thanks.
I don't care. Don't care.
Meghan Markle.
Game on, America!
Okay, well, you don't get paid for that.
What the hell?
What did he just say? He victimized me. It's because I'm an ethnic woman.
On Suits, I was a series regular. I was Rachel Zane, attorney at law.
He can't do that. I'll see. Wait, you're ethnic? This is an outrage. We'll just see how he deals with my blue.
Okay, well, I actually didn't do anything, but I'm glad you have a job.
Don't worry, my love. He's not gonna get away with this.
Yeah, well, it's technically not a job. Don't know where you heard that.
Would you ever consider joining the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills?
Are you serious?
What happens when a cartoon becomes more real than reality itself? When 5 leaked animation frames can destroy years of carefully crafted public relations and trigger a crisis that reaches from Hollywood boardrooms to Buckingham Palace? You're about to find out, because what started as internet whispers just became mainstream ammunition, and the fallout is unlike anything we've seen before. Late Tuesday night, something appeared on Reddit that wasn't supposed to exist. 5 unmarked, watermarked images surfaced on an obscure animation forum. No official logos, no episode titles, just raw storyboard frames that would change everything.
Anyway, Meghan, you were saying Dorit's such a what?
What? No, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything, Dorit.
Well, I heard it somewhere.
At first glance, they seemed fake, maybe fan art or an elaborate hoax. But then people started looking closer, and what they saw made the internet explode. There she was, a wide-brimmed brunette cartoon figure, lounging on an impossibly luxurious mega yacht, sipping pink rosé while chaos unfolded around her. Behind her, a red-headed prince struggled in the water, desperately clinging to a crying baby-shaped float, labeled, quote, public sympathy. The detail was surgical, the symbolism brutal, and within hours, these images had ricocheted across every social media platform imaginable. The post vanished almost immediately. Accounts locked down, threads deleted, but the damage was already spreading like wildfire.
We got your survey answers, and I think we've put together some great ideas for your brand.
These weren't just random cartoons. They were from the most dangerous satirical weapon in television. A show that had turned mockery into an art form and destroyed reputations, with nothing more than colored pencils and savage wit. What you're looking at isn't just animation, it's assassination by cartoon. The figure on the yacht, though unnamed, was unmistakably styled and positioned. She reclined on a chaise made entirely of press clippings, surrounded by assistants frantically fanning her with documents labeled NDAs. Her rosé bottle bore the inscription, Vintage Deflection, while she held up a contract reading, New Life, Who This? Meanwhile, the prince got sunscreen squirted directly in his eyes by a drone marked Daily Mail.
I understand you want people to like you more and think you're cool.
But here's what made this leak so devastating. It didn't create a narrative, it crystallized one that had been brewing in the shadows for over a decade. Those yacht rumors that lived in conspiracy forums and blind item gossip sites suddenly had a visual representation, broadcast to millions through the lens of satirical genius. The internet didn't just notice, it went absolutely feral. Within 8 hours, the phrase everyone thought would stay buried forever started trending worldwide. Fan accounts dissected every frame like it was the Zapruder film. The symbolism wasn't subtle, it was a sledgehammer wrapped in Emmy-winning animation, and it landed exactly where it was supposed to hurt most.
It's so nice to have you back in London, Meghan. I've missed our little lunches.
We've never had lunch together, Kate.
Well, we must continue the tradition.
You want to know how serious this got? The moment those frames hit critical mass, emergency protocols activated in a Montecito mansion at 2:46 a.m. Not the usual media damage control, something much more desperate. A staffer was yanked from sleep with 2 words that sent shockwaves through an entire organization. Black status. She had seen it. The cartoon. And what happened next turned a leaked animation into a full-scale war. The estate's internal communication channels lit up like a Christmas tree. Legal teams, PR specialists, brand partnerships, digital security, everyone summoned into an emergency video call in the middle of the night. But here's the chilling part. She refused to appear on camera, opting for audio only.
History pretty much suck. I mean, the Crusades, Hitler, Prince Harry marrying Meghan Markle. Again? Oh, like all of your wives are so much better.
Sources describe her voice as ice cold, surgical, completely controlled, despite the chaos erupting around her. No press statements, no social media responses, no sympathetic interviews, just 3 demands that revealed everything about how seriously this was being taken. I want cease and desists. I want takedowns. I want the Reddit user found. This wasn't about hurt feelings or public embarrassment. This was pure defense mode, the kind of response you see when someone's entire, carefully constructed world is under existential threat. The team scrambled through a dozen different strategies. Could they play the victim? Frame it as misogynistic media mockery? Write a heartfelt essay about the trauma of being parodied for profit? But every angle carried massive risks, especially because this wasn't just random mockery.
And you know what else? To hell with Canada! We are leaving! We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people! Come on, wife!
This was surgical satire that had tapped into the exact narrative they'd spent years and millions of dollars trying to bury. It made their worst fears cartoon viral, and worse, it made them look exactly like what their critics had always claimed they were. Behind the scenes, the legal response was swift and overwhelming. A high-powered entertainment litigator from New York joined the team within hours. A UK-based defamation expert went on standby. By midday, a dozen legal inquiries had been fired off at platform hosts, image aggregators, even meme pages that dared splice the cartoon frames with real photographs. But the internet had already learned this lesson the hard way. By the time the first takedown request was issued, screenshots were archived across 20 separate secure locations. The harder they pushed for suppression, the faster it spread. They had walked straight into the trap that destroys more reputations than any scandal ever could.
Oh, you hilarious, Meghan.
Why did you move back here anyway? It was ultimately a tough call, but there were a lot of factors to consider.
While legal warfare raged in conference rooms and law offices, something even more telling was happening in the garden of that Montecito estate. He wasn't in the emergency meetings. He wasn't on the strategy calls. He had simply vanished. According to multiple sources, he disappeared into the garden around 3 a.m. and didn't reappear until nearly noon the next day. His phone, normally buzzing with calls from therapists, charity liaisons, even the occasional family member, sat completely silent. Staff eventually found him near the chicken coop, staring out across the vineyard in what one insider described as eerily quiet, like he was trying to breathe through the noise. Because while she snapped into full litigation mode, he had completely frozen.
It has been several months now since our beloved queen has died. All Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the prince and his wife.
This wasn't like previous media storms they'd weathered together. This wasn't a tabloid scandal they could spin, or a documentary they could counter-program. This was cartoon permanence, and deep down, he understood something she apparently didn't. Once you get drawn twice by the same satirical masterminds, you're no longer a misunderstood figure in the public consciousness. You become a running joke. And this time, he didn't even get to be the punchline. He was just the guy with the floaty, crying in the water while she sipped rosé on her floating throne of press clippings and legal documents. The visual metaphor was so perfect, so cutting, that even he couldn't deny what it represented. But the real earthquake hadn't even started yet, because while lawyers fired off cease and desist letters, Hollywood was quietly pulling the plug on everything.
Who's that?
That's your nephew, Archie.
You're pulling my leg. Why have we not met before?
You've met him like 1,000 times.
The entertainment industry doesn't operate on sentiment, it runs on strategy and risk assessment. When those yacht frames went viral, you could practically hear emergency meetings being called in boardrooms across Los Angeles. Not meetings about how to support their talent, meetings about how to distance themselves as quickly as possible. By the time legal teams were demanding takedowns, industry executives were already reviewing contracts and looking for exit strategies. 2 major development deals immediately got flagged as volatile. One was a lifestyle documentary series tied to her wellness brand, pitched as a meditation on resilience and rebranding. The other, a romantic comedy series with heavy autobiographical elements.
There were highs and lows. It's all good. Anyway, see you guys at tea. Come on, Harry.
Both projects went into immediate freeze mode. One executive described the situation with brutal honesty, a reputational sinkhole. Another was even more direct. No one wants to launch a show that's going to get memed into oblivion before the trailer even drops. The Rosé collaboration collapsed next. The wine line had already faced whispers about private labeling and questionable branding, but the cartoon leak pushed nervous distributors over the edge. One upscale distributor who had committed to limited California releases quietly hit pause, citing concerns about, quote, brand ambiguity and satirical volatility. Translation: when your product becomes the punchline, nobody wants to pour your wine. The damage spread like a virus through the influencer economy. Wellness personalities in Australia and Canada backed out of scheduled campaigns, citing, quote, uncertain optics.
How many more princes and his wives have to live in this nightmare?
One influencer, known for her feminist branding, reportedly told her agent she couldn't promote Rosé to trauma survivors. The same week, a major cartoon turned their spokesperson into a floating meme. Podcast studios went completely dark. After previous streaming failures, the team had been shopping a more intimate, vulnerable show concept to major platforms. Amazon, Apple, iHeart, all the big players suddenly went cold. One representative was allegedly overheard calling the pitch, quote, PR poison with a microphone. Even publicity firms started bailing. A major celebrity branding company declined to renew their contract, citing what they called satirical fatigue. They didn't say their former client was problematic. They said she had become a punchline. And that's infinitely worse in Hollywood. Because here's the thing about the entertainment business.
We can be the people we talked about being, with no more worries about how we look or the image we project to people. What matters is what we have on the inside. Hello?
Controversy can be monetized. But being laughed at, being seen as fundamentally unserious, that's the kiss of death. One agent reportedly told a streaming executive, you can't outbrand parody. You can't reset if they've turned you into a trope. And that trope, now cemented in cartoon form, wasn't aspirational anymore. It was theatrical. A bottle of rosé on a floating throne, surrounded by legal documents and hashtags, while he just tried to climb aboard. But while Los Angeles turned cold, the silence from across the Atlantic was even more devastating. Because sometimes what isn't said speaks louder than any press release ever could.
This might be the smallest palace I've ever been in.
Over in the United Kingdom, the response from the royal establishment was deafening in its complete absence. No statements, no press leaks, not a single word of commentary or context. Just absolute, calculated silence that hit harder than any public criticism ever could. According to royal correspondence, Kensington Palace was immediately aware of the cartoon leak. A staff member spotted the yacht images the same morning they went viral and shared them in a private group chat with the perfect title, Ice and Spare. The response wasn't alarm or strategy discussions, just cry-laughing emojis and confirmation that the situation had moved beyond their concern. But the real headline wasn't the silence. It was what happened when the cameras started rolling. Prince William, stoic and famously tight-lipped, was attending a youth mental health summit the day after the cartoon explosion.
We're hoping the ketchups and mustards are going to be sold at Whole Foods, which, would be huge. Oh, and they're all organic in case anyone was wondering.
We weren't.
The press swarmed, cameras flashed, and then came the moment everyone was waiting for. A bold journalist asked directly, "Have you seen the cartoon leak, sir?" William didn't answer with words. He didn't need to. He paused, tilted his head slightly, and for just 1 second, his mouth twitched. Not a laugh, not even a full smile, just the faintest curve at the corner of his lips. But to royal watchers, it was seismic. Because William rarely reacts publicly to anything, especially not regarding his brother. That micro-expression was the royal equivalent of a mic drop, a quiet signal that the palace had made its choice. They would not intervene, not to defend, not to contextualize, not to validate any claims of victimhood. The doors had officially closed.
Hi, I'm Meghan Markle.
And I'm Harry. Harry.
And we're royally screwed.
For someone who still harbored hopes of eventual reconciliation, of private support even if public backing wasn't possible, this was devastating. Instead of family solidarity, he got the sound of institutional indifference. Former aides described the internal mood as vindicated amusement, the feeling that after years of being branded as racists and manipulators in best-selling memoirs, karma had finally arrived wearing a cartoon crown. And honestly, this wasn't really about him anymore. For her, the royal silence was even more brutal. Because while the family might have expected eventual reconciliation with their prodigal prince, they had never truly accepted her as one of their own. She wasn't just cast out, she was never fully in to begin with. So now, with satirical animation dragging her past into public mockery and cultural sentiment shifting from oppressed duchess to media operator, the royal family didn't need to lift a finger.
We just want to be normal people. All this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines?
The culture was doing their work for them. Just when it seemed like the damage might be contained, like maybe the storm would pass quietly into internet history, something unexpected happened that changed everything. The collective memory of the digital age kicked in, and suddenly people started remembering where these rumors actually began. The Yacht whispers didn't start with satirical animation or social media trends. They go back over a decade to obscure WordPress blogs, cryptic blind items, and gossip forums that existed in the shadows of mainstream celebrity coverage. Back then, before royal titles and lifestyle brands, she was best known for her television role. A rising actress, polished and stylish, always photographed at the right events, and occasionally, according to internet investigators, spotted in places she couldn't publicly explain.
And please stop sending me samples.
I hear you, Andy. I'll amp it up. I'll smash a wine glass. I'll tell Kyle she has Munchausen syndrome. I'll accuse Dorit of doing coke.
Super yachts docked off exclusive coastlines, high-profile parties in Mediterranean hotspots, Dubai, Sardinia, locations that appeared in now-deleted social media posts. The claims were always vague, photos blurry when they existed at all. Most of it would have stayed in conspiracy territory, except for recurring details that kept appearing across different sources. The same yacht names, the same hosting networks, overlapping timelines, and her name appearing again and again, sometimes in initials, sometimes in full. It wasn't just male-dominated forums spreading these stories. The gossip found its way into comment sections of major publications, into rumor accounts before they became mainstream, into private group chats among industry insiders. Some claimed she was well-positioned in elite social circles long before meeting royalty. Others suggested her representation at the time facilitated discreet travel arrangements. None of it was ever proven. She never addressed it publicly. But the rumors never behaved like normal celebrity slander. They didn't explode and fade. They just lingered. A persistent shadow following her evolution from actress to activist, from red carpets to palace gates. When the major interview aired, the whispers got louder. When streaming deals collapsed, they surged again. But nothing compared to what happened once satirical animation brought them into the mainstream. Because satire doesn't need proof, it just needs recognition.
Thanks. Okay, see you later. Oh, would you pick up some milk?
When the cartoon showed a figure who looked exactly like her, lounging on a yacht surrounded by NDAs and dollar bills swirling like confetti, it didn't invent a narrative. It confirmed one that had been building for years. Suddenly, all those old blog posts got excavated. Screenshots from defunct forums, archived links from disappeared websites, photo comparisons, timeline analyses, even podcast clips, where guests had alluded to certain figures in the Mediterranean social circuit. Social media did what it does best, turning gossip into visual theory. Side-by-side comparisons, blurred photos overlaid with explanatory voiceovers, deep dives into yacht culture and private jet logistics. The hashtag crossed 2 million views in 48 hours. Of course, none of this proves anything definitive, but in today's media landscape, truth often matters less than momentum. When that momentum gets wrapped in Emmy-winning satire and broadcast to millions, perception crystallizes into legend. Which is exactly why her legal team didn't just fear the animation itself, they feared what it would reactivate. All those buried search results, all those scrubbed forum posts, all those carefully managed digital footprints suddenly becoming relevant again. And as she assembled legal reinforcements, like chess pieces on a battlefield, he was slipping into something much darker, because even if he didn't understand where the yacht theories originated, he could feel exactly where they were heading. While she orchestrated lawyers and crisis management like a military operation, he had vanished completely. Not just from strategy calls and press briefings, but from the entire situation.
If it's truly what we want, then we really can get away from it all. No more magazines and Netflix shows. We really can live a normal life. Yes, I'm sure you agree, darling.
Sources close to the couple describe what they now call his retreat mode, a familiar pattern when public chaos strikes. He disappears physically, emotionally, digitally. Phone off, appointments canceled, news alerts blocked. But this time felt different because it wasn't a headline he could deny or deflect. This was cartoon humiliation. And worse, he wasn't even the main character. He was the supporting player in someone else's satirical destruction. Staff found him pacing the gravel paths around their property, barefoot, hoodie up, muttering under his breath. One former aide said he looked less angry than lost, like he was grieving something but couldn't identify what exactly he was mourning. It wasn't just about being mocked. He'd survived tabloids, late-night television, even political commentary. But this was different. This was spiritual evisceration. A floaty labeled validation. A cartoon therapist holding up flashcards that read, "Mommy issues." A framed rejection letter visible in the background of one scene. The layers were surgical, personal, cutting in ways only brilliant satire dares to be. He understood exactly what it meant. Every podcast pivot, every memoir excerpt, every attempt at public rehabilitation had been reduced to a single image of him desperately chasing relevance in the shadow of someone sipping rosé on a throne made of press coverage. He stopped taking calls from his therapist, stopped responding to texts from military friends, even ignored a voicemail from one of the few celebrity allies who had stood by them through every previous storm.
We couldn't get jobs and we ran out of money. We ate chicken out of bowls and rode in big cars full of smelly people to something called work. Every day was a new nightmare.
The tension between them reportedly reached a boiling point because they wanted completely different responses to the crisis. She wanted total legal warfare, complete suppression, tactical reset, through overwhelming force. He wanted it all to just stop. He wanted silence, maybe even wanted to disappear back to London for a while, anywhere the cameras couldn't find him. But that wasn't an option, because for her, this wasn't just satirical entertainment. It was professional sabotage, and she wasn't about to let it go unanswered. She allegedly accused him of abandoning ship at the worst possible moment, of making himself invisible instead of defending their shared enterprise. That word, enterprise, was reportedly the final straw. Sources say he exploded, yelling something about never signing up for this particular circus, before locking himself in their guest house overnight. No security detail, no phone calls, just him, a bottle of whiskey, and the sound of ocean waves crashing against the cliffs below. Because no matter how many times they claimed to have left the institutional machinery behind, the world kept treating them like they were still performing in the same show. And now that show had animated them into legends without mercy or redemption. But while he unraveled behind closed doors, the masterminds behind this entire cultural earthquake were just getting started, and what they revealed next sent shockwaves through every entertainment boardroom in America. The irreverent duo, who had built satirical animation into a cultural wrecking ball, took the stage at a major creators conference, looking exactly as smug as you'd expect from people who knew they'd just detonated a bomb that was still exploding across multiple continents. They didn't mention names directly, they didn't need to, because when a moderator asked how they handle legal threats from powerful people when parodying real-world figures, one of them just smiled and said, "We frame the legal notices now. They're like fan mail." The room exploded with laughter, and his partner chimed in with a wink. The trick is to hit exactly where the PR teams panic first. That's how you know it landed. Then came the revelation that sent the internet into absolute overdrive. The full episode, the one connected to the leaked yacht frames, wasn't just in development or conceptual stages. It was finished, complete, ready for broadcast. And according to their cryptic hints, the version that had leaked and caused all this chaos was the mild version. One creator said with a grin, "If that little rosé joke got them scrambling, they're not ready for the ending." People in the audience were stunned. Gasps, nervous laughter. A few jaws literally dropped, because the leak had already been devastating. If that was just the appetizer, what could possibly be coming in the main course?
Why are we so mad today? Because we want our privacy.
Rumors immediately started swirling. One alleged there's a courtroom scene where the Duchess tries to sue a cartoon character for defamation, only for the judge to reveal he's also animated. Another suggested storyboard frames showing the prince attempting to trademark the phrase "misunderstood millionaire," while a parody of famous interviewers nods blankly in the background. If those rumors are accurate, and they probably are, this isn't just entertainment for these creators, it's blood sport. They've built their careers attacking hypocrisy, manipulation, and calculated image construction. In this case, they clearly saw an irresistible target. Someone who weaponized victimhood, monetized trauma, and expected media adoration without critique. As one of them put it with brutal directness, "When your entire brand depends on never being laughed at, that's exactly when we show up." Even more chilling, they hinted at holding additional content back. "There's material we animated that we might release after the episode airs," one teased. "Let's just say some of it didn't even make legal review. We're keeping it in the vault for now." Translation: this cartoon saga might not even be finished. If the first leak cracked the armor, the full broadcast might shatter it completely. Because satirical animation doesn't just lampoon people, it labels them permanently. Once that label sticks in the cultural consciousness, when it gets memed and shared and absorbed into the collective digital memory, it becomes more real than reality. But the internet wasn't waiting for official broadcasts to take matters into its own hands. Because if the creators drew the match, social media was about to throw it into a pool of gasoline. The meme factory went into absolute overdrive within 12 hours of the Yacht leak. If satirical animation lit the fuse, social media platforms turned it into a cultural supernova with hashtags, video transitions, investigative deep dives, and remix content that transformed a handful of storyboard frames into an entire cinematic universe. The creativity was almost too fast to track. Users mashed the leaked cartoon with real-life luxury yacht photos from Mediterranean hotspots, framing them like missing scenes from prestige documentaries. Others layered the prince's floaty scenes over moody atmospheric music with captions like "public sympathy," "declined," and hashtags that became instant viral sensations. A short-lived trend called NDAs and rosé exploded into thousands of satirical videos pairing old speeches with yacht imagery and cartoon clips. One creator edited a fake movie trailer complete with dramatic voiceover, orchestral strings, and a parody interview introduction that hit 3 million views in 2 days. But it wasn't just quick social media reactions. Long-form content creators jumped in with both feet, posting 20-minute documentary-style videos with titles like "The Theory Now in Animation" and "Why This Just Lost the Culture War." These weren't throwaway responses. They were edited like streaming service documentaries with timestamps, screenshots, and side-by-side analysis of how the satire paralleled real-world rumors.
Hey, thanks for having us on the show. It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
They were absolutely relentless, because satirical animation had given them something the internet loves more than anything: plausible deniability wrapped in parody. You're not claiming the yacht theories are factual, you're just commenting on the cultural resonance that made a major animated show think they were worth drawing. That's the perfect loophole, and it gave millions of people license to laugh without guilt. Even creative writing communities got involved. A forum popped up overnight dedicated to expanding the satirical universe, where people imagined alternate endings, speculated on future cartoon appearances, and wrote dialogue for animated royal family members shaking their heads as yachts sailed past famous landmarks. It sounds completely unhinged, but this is exactly how reputations collapse in the digital age. Not with a single devastating headline, but with a hashtag and 1,000 remixes that turn one moment into permanent cultural memory. Her defenders tried to fight back. A counter hashtag attempted to reframe the satirical treatment as misogynistic media bullying. Influencer allies posted minimalist statements about respecting women's journeys and refusing to amplify harmful satire. But it fell completely flat. Because once parody gains meme momentum, resistance just becomes more content. Even attempts to defend her were remixed into new forms of sarcasm. One clip of a wellness influencer defending her was edited with yacht horn sound effects and cartoon-style animation. Brutal? Maybe. Unfair? Possibly. But viral culture isn't about fairness, it's about friction. And as the memes kept multiplying exponentially, major brands started looking at something more important than public sentiment. They started looking at the numbers, and what they found next absolutely terrified them. Behind the scenes, data analysts and brand managers weren't reacting emotionally to satirical animation. They were responding like calculators with teeth, pulling dashboards and running predictive models the second those yacht frames detonated across social media.
What happened to your ring?
I gave it to the working people.
We're the working people.
The results were devastating. Search volume for yacht-related rumors spiked over 400%. Branded engagement on wine, podcast, and wellness initiatives dropped 37% in less than 72 hours. Online mentions of lifestyle products were being outpaced by jokes about rosé and legal documents. But the real dagger came from the financial backers. According to insiders familiar with their fundraising efforts, several high-level contributors requested amendments to their support contracts, essentially legal language, that gave them permission to suspend future funding if either party became what they termed culturally unviable. Let that sink in for a moment. Not politically controversial, not legally compromised, just mocked too extensively. That became the new red line for major donors. One contributor reportedly told a contact, "We can't attach ourselves to something that's becoming satirical shorthand for insincerity." Then came the streaming giant that had been the crown jewel of their media strategy. The $100 million partnership went oddly quiet. No promotion of existing content, no teasers for new projects, no follow-up meetings scheduled. According to one streaming insider, her latest pitch, a hybrid documentary about rebranding through adversity, was recently soft-passed with no timeline for reconsideration. Translation: they stopped picking up the phone entirely. Meanwhile, luxury retailers stocking lifestyle products started quietly reevaluating shelf placement and promotional visibility. One European buyer described it as brand erosion in real time. Another said simply, "People don't want satire in their gift baskets." Podcast networks became completely unreachable. The second audio comeback had been carefully planned, featuring conversations about resilience, identity, and personal growth. But now the proposal sits in digital limbo, while executives admit privately that the brand has shifted from misunderstood to unmarketable.
Sorry, I'm just really stressed. We're completely out of money.
Maybe it's time we dip into your fortune from Suits.
There is no fortune from Suits.
People weren't tuning in to listen anymore. They were tuning in to look for contradictions and moments they could turn into memes. Even speaking engagements took a massive hit. Event planners, according to leaked correspondence, became nervous about audience backlash and social media optics. One Fortune 500 conference that had verbally confirmed a keynote address suddenly claimed they were reassessing cultural alignment. Translation: too much drama, not enough dignity. This is the nightmare scenario that crisis management teams always prepare for, but hope never happens. Not just bad press, but complete economic erosion. A single cartoon gag had ricocheted into seven-figure financial fallout, and that was before the actual episode even aired. Meetings shifted from growth strategies to survival tactics, from expanding the brand empire to simply keeping the lights on. Because at this rate, one more cultural gut punch might not just bruise the carefully constructed image, it could break the entire business model. And the moment everyone was dreading most had just been officially confirmed. The episode had a title, a locked air date, and promotional materials already in production. No more rumors, no more speculation, no more leaked frames. Industry insiders confirmed that the network had cleared prime real estate for the broadcast, complete with post-show analysis panels and exclusive bonus material rumored to include unused storyboard segments that already had legal teams on high alert. But here's what makes this different from every other media storm they've weathered. This isn't just a television show anymore, it's a cultural referendum. After all the interviews, documentaries, streaming dramas, best-selling memoirs, and merchandise launches, this is where the narrative has led. A single half-hour of animation that could define their public legacy more powerfully than any content they've created themselves. Why? Because it's not about facts anymore, it's about feelings. Satirical genius caught the cultural shift, the public fatigue, the growing disconnect between carefully crafted messaging and authentic moments. By translating that disconnect into absurd, brutal, unforgettable imagery, they captured something traditional media couldn't quantify. Mockery has mass in the digital age. Once you become a cartoon, especially twice, the public starts seeing you as less real person and more cultural concept. Victim turned brand turned parody, that's the trajectory critics claim this narrative has followed, and this episode might cement it permanently. Even historically sympathetic voices in the press are expressing unease. Several opinion pieces have appeared warning about the weaponization of satire and questioning whether parody has crossed ethical lines. But they're not landing with audiences because the public isn't rallying around the targets.
Anyway, Meghan, you were saying Dorit's such a what?
What? No, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything, Dorit.
Well, I heard it somewhere.
They're entertained, and that might be the most damning twist of all. The comments sections aren't filled with sympathy, they're gleeful. Viewers are placing bets on which jokes will make the final cut. The Prince's Crying Floaty, the courtroom fantasy sequence, a yacht-themed music video parody that's been rumored but not confirmed. One popular prediction involves a fictional award show called The Wokies, where the cartoon Duchess accepts a trophy for lifetime achievement in brand reinvention, only to be interrupted by her own animated therapist holding up a mirror. Savage? Absolutely. Far-fetched? Remember, this is the same show that once depicted a major celebrity trapped in a literal closet for an entire episode. No metaphor is considered off-limits. Which brings us to the legacy question that's keeping crisis management teams awake at night. Once this airs, there's no going back. No heartfelt documentary series can soften this blow. No rebranding campaign can erase these frames from pop culture memory. She won't just have a reputation anymore, she'll have an animated avatar permanently embedded in the cultural consciousness. And he, according to sources, has already warned friends to avoid watching it when it broadcasts, not because it's inaccurate, but because it might be too accurate in its emotional truth. It hurts precisely because it's not just random satire. It feels authentic to the public perception that's been building for years. Now they face the only verdict that actually matters in the modern media landscape. Not from courts or traditional publications, but from viewers, from internet culture, from the permanent record of meme history. The question isn't whether they can survive this cartoon saga. It's whether satirical animation has accomplished what scandal never could, the complete transformation of public figures into permanent punchlines. The creators were right about one thing. When your entire brand depends on never being laughed at, that's exactly when the culture shows up to test that theory. And based on everything we've seen so far, that test might just be decisive. What do you think happens next? Has satire finally done what traditional media couldn't? Or is there still a path back from cartoon infamy? The internet has already made its choice, but the final episode of this cultural drama is still being written, one meme at a time.